Welcome back to Will It Work. I am Kevin. Today we're looking at video sports from Venture Electronics. 4 exciting games: tennis, hockey, squash, and practice. Can y'all guess what microprocessor's in here? I bet you can. Isn't it amazing? Though, don't you find it, like, if you've been following this series from the beginning, don't you just find it absolutely incredible that there's this many different Pong systems running on the same microprocessor? It just shows you, like, how weird the 70s were. Like, that everybody and their dad sold and made a different Pong system. It's not like these are all from, different places around the world or anything. The vast majority of these things were sold in the United States. And it's just crazy because, like, I think, a lot of it is just, like, the way the United States was set up. Most people didn't do things via mail order, right? And so, like, you had to go to the store and you would buy things. And depending on where you lived, there were stores that were targeted to your area. Not everybody had a Sears, not everybody had a Woolworths, etc. Like, and there were lots and lots of places, especially in small town America, but also just like, different regions of the United States, etc., that, had different stores. Like, when I was in the 80s, in the 90s, right? In my city, like my suburb where I lived, we had a mall, so we had everything, okay? But there was no internet. There was very little catalog orders, because if you ordered something from a catalog, it would take 4 to 6 weeks to get to you, and it might not be right when it showed up, and so you would go through a big hassle of ordering something, waiting forever to get it, and then finding out that it wasn't what you wanted. So most people wanted to just go to the store, get what they wanted, and that was that. So, where I lived, in terms of like department stores that sold a variety of things, including like, say, a video sports, right? So there was Sears. Radio Shack obviously was around. JCPenney's would sell some electronics, but not incredible amounts, but they were around. And then we had like these sort of discount stores. We had this store called Zare. We had Gold Circle, which became Hills. We had Best Electronics. Probably like a Circuit City. Best Buy wasn't around yet. There were all kinds of these places, and all kinds of electronic stores and TV places and stuff. And so each of these different companies could get into one or more of these different stores and sell their products in there. So, Atari had a deal with like Sears, so Sears was basically selling the Telegames brand under the Atari ones. Like, if you wanted an Atari, you went to Sears. Sears was basically the powerhouse back then, the Walmart or the Amazon of that generation. But if you went into Kmart, and you wanted to play Pong, maybe you found something different. There was something else. If you went into Woolworths, there was definitely something else there. If you went into Hills, they had something. All of them were different and sold in different stores, but they all were basically the same thing. And now, if you go to today, and you had, the stores that we still have around today, department stores, etc., and you go buy a PlayStation or whatever, it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same model, right? That you're going to find everywhere else, except that we do still see some things that are exclusives. We see exclusive bundles. We see, like, Dollar General, for instance, had a flashback system that was specific to them. It had a hidden game in it that was only for people that, when you went to Dollar General. But for the most part, the units, the systems themselves, they're going to be the same. They're not going to have people making different things. But back then, back in the 70s, this was what it was. Everybody was making their own thing, and you could have made something. Like, if you had the money and the time, and you had the ability to make a mold or something of plastic, to get the pieces parts, you could license the microchip and put it on a circuit board and build your own thing. And obviously what they did is they went out to, like, Hong Kong or some other, place where they had all this stuff already, and they just said, these are the engineering specs that I want. Go ahead and build that for me. And then they would probably buy it very cheap, ship it back here, and then resell it. I mean, of course, right? That's what they still do today, but much more independent than it was, probably like, in today's world, if somebody comes up with a microchip, they're usually selling the technology, like NVIDIA, for instance, they license it to other manufacturers, and then they compete on price and everything. But a graphics card is still a graphics card. It's mostly the same. It's not like when you buy like an MSI or something versus like an Asus or whatever, that they're going to be radically different. You know what I mean? So it's going to be exactly the same. But this stuff, Wild West. Pong Systems, Wild West. Anyway, I want to reminisce about it forever, but you know what I'm saying. It's just incredible how many different ones there are, and we're not done. Oh no, we're not even close. There are many more of these things to look at, and it's just your mind's gonna melt by the time we get all done with it. But anyway, this one's in the box. Video Sports. Venture Electronics was in Chicago, Illinois. 3 different realistic sounds. I'm positive this is using the same old microprocessor. 4 games, 8 challenging levels of difficulty, ball speed, angle, bat size, automatic or manual serve, screen scoring, 3 different realistic sounds, etc. So let's go ahead and take it out of the box and see how it looks. Big sewer rat will come out of it or something. Ah! Alright, hold on. I don't want to tear the foam because sometimes these boxes shrink a little bit, they get a little bit of water. And so if you're not careful, you can't get the foam out. Okay. This one looks pretty clean. Well, I'm not sure if this one's ever been played. Let's take a look here. I've certainly never used it. We have a warranty for Video Sports Game. Your warranty registration card would go to Dealer Service Center in New York. That's interesting. For Venture's Electronic Service Center. So Chicago, Illinois, and also New York. Venture, I think, made a few different things like this. I don't know if this company's still around. I mean, most of these companies aren't. But they seem to have more than a few things. Crazy line drawing on there. Oh, good Lord. It was actually cheaper back then to do sketches and put them into magazines and catalogs than it was to do photographs. I don't know exactly the reason why, just how things were. And so, yeah, a lot of things would have sketches, line art, etc. Power sources are good old 6 batteries. So, okay, we got a manual. And we've got, so this is kind of interesting. We have a large switch box. This is ANT 3000. We have a coax antenna. Here we have game there. And then we've got out to the TV. And then we've got 2 antenna ends. So we've got an antenna in here. Traditional wires. My guess is, well, the game is here. I've never seen one like this before, to be honest with you. I've never seen double antenna like that. I mean, I think the manual kind of goes over it, but it's very unusual. Strange. What usually happens is, you have like VHF and UHF antennas back then. They were slightly different. VHF would be more directional, so it kind of, wherever your TV antenna station was broadcasting from, it was kind of shooting it outwards, like in a cone shape, towards, a direction. So it might be like outside of the city, and it would sort of aim it towards the city and shoot this, beam kind of thing radio waves, you know, in a sort of direction. And that's kind of how VHF worked. And if you were like not inside that cone, you wouldn't get channels very well. But there was antennas that would, you know, pick up that VHF signal. And then UHF was more like what you kind of think of where like the antenna is centered and then it's broadcasting outward all from, you know, 360 degrees. So it's just sending a signal out and blanketing the whole area. And for whatever reason, you know, VHF was more desired for the main television networks. So your NBC, your ABC, and CBS. And Fox didn't come until later. These days it doesn't matter because it's all digital. But UHF generally wasn't where the big channels were. But it had a lot to do with licensing. But I've lived in many different cities in my life, and almost always the major networks were on VHF, and the lesser channels were on UHF. Unless it was just something, you know, to do with like people got bought out or something, you know. I mean, I don't know, New York, they probably have like a bazillion channels in New York back in the day, and they probably had some stuff on UHF that was major. But, you know, when you live in like a normal city, although I lived in Los Angeles, I lived in Detroit, pretty much the same. Okay, so we've got a power adapter here. Now this is interesting. It fit in the box, but it is a multi-adapter. An Archer AC adapter, 4.5, 6, 7.5, and 9 volt. That is wild. Now, it's not the first time I've gotten one of these with a unit before. This is Radio Shack Tandy Corp. So my guess is this must have been used, and this is not the original power adapter. It could be like they just included it in the box. It's kind of rare though, because most of these things didn't come with power adapters. You usually had to buy them aftermarket. So I'm going to think that this is probably used at least once, and somebody threw in a multifunction adapter. But you know what? I'm one of those people though, like, if I ever owned like a multifunction adapter, I wouldn't put it in the box and put it away, because like I probably have some other electronics that I would use the multifunction adapter for. So like it's always kind of amazes me that people like did that, because it's like you're gonna find something else before too long that needs an adapter, especially from the 70s, and you went ahead and put it away. So there we have it, the Venture Sports. It's a nice clean looking system, right? I like these giant knobs. They don't even have like a full motion range, you know. It's just like a 45 degree, that's it. That's funny. You have some nice switches. Not some plastic junk. They're kind of metal or metal-ish. We have a serve button here. It looks like with this plastic on top, it was not common to put that protective plastic on top of electronics back then. So this is actually probably originally part of this that's just kind of come up, is my guess. So I'm not going to remove it. I think it would probably look fine if I did remove it, but I think it, as original, that's actually how it was supposed to be. Amateur, Pro, Auto Manual, Fast, Slow, Long, Short, buttons feel okay. Let's take a look at the back. So we have Venture Electronics, VS-1, made in Japan. Japan, huh? And looks like, yeah, somebody had some old batteries in here that had corroded. That's probably why they threw the adapter in. That's not a big deal, though. These things are usually stainless, so there's just some... You could clean that up, and it would be fine, as long as it doesn't leak into the main department, which looks like it did not. So that's no problem. What channel are we on here? We're on channel 3. Okay. We'll try the adapter out. We'll see if it blows my fuse box out and kills all of us. So what I'll do is I'll hook it up as usual to the input, and power it up, and we'll switch over to the video screen. We'll see if it works. If it does, we'll talk about it and flip through it really quick. Take like a minute, and we'll wrap this one up. Otherwise, if it doesn't work, we'll come back here and we'll talk about it for a couple minutes about what's wrong with it, and then we'll end the video. All right, here we go. Okay, here we are with the Venture Electronics Video Sports. This is tennis, and that's what it says on here. But sometimes I see this effect happen with these units where we have 2 on the one side and 3 on the other. And that is some sort of an error that happens, I think, with this technology. Now, let me hit reset. And it's still 3 on that side, 2 on the other. Let's serve the ball. Now, there's no sound coming out of the unit. Let's see if there's sound coming through the television. I usually keep that disconnected, so let's see here. There is. So that is interesting because our AY3 8500 chip, it probably can drive the sound out through the RF, but this is the first time I've seen it with that particular chip. Most of the time they have the sound coming out of the unit. Kind of interesting. Bad size, we have long and short. See, that makes no difference when I operate that switch. Ball speed. That's fast. You have Pro. I don't know. And serve is set to auto, but it's not working. If I switch it to manual and hit serve, okay. It's really interesting. And if I switch it to auto, all right, well, it served that time. Huh, weird. All right, let's switch the dial over to hockey. Hit reset. Okay, the game has not changed at all. It was odd. Go to tennis. Same game. Go to squash. Same game. Go to practice. Same game. Now, I can understand if the sliding switch isn't working right. That could be a thing. But it's very unusual to have this 3-on-2 configuration. I mean, wow. Otherwise, it works. The motion on these controls is excellent. There's no issues with the range of motion. But in terms of the game, yeah, that slider, it definitely feels like it's connected, you know? I mean, I can feel it, but it's certainly not switching games. So I'm not going to open this one up, but sometimes these things need to be cleaned. It's possible, you know how it is with these electronics. It might need just to be recapped, but it works right now, and I'm not going to mess with it. I usually only mess with the ones that are completely not displaying. This one is working, so we'll just keep it as is. It's basically like everything else. It's more of a display unit than anything. But crazy thing. It is kind of interesting, though, that the audio is going through the main unit. We've seen that with other Pong systems for sure, but we generally don't see it with this black and white AY3 8500 chip. So, oh well, video sports. Another footnote in history. Thanks for watching.